You lower the lot size, but nothing changed because the risk was never just in the trade. It was in you. You think sizing down will protect you. It won't. You still stare, still flinch, still hover over the entry, like it owes you stability. This isn't money management. It's ritual. A smaller trade to justify longer screen time, more entries, less guilt. You didn't reduce risk. You just disguised it. You softened the damage so you could keep feeding the habit without the usual pain spike. You say you're being cautious. You're being obsessive. You're not managing risk. You're numbing it. Now every 0.01 lot scalp feels safe. So you click without pause, click without purpose, click because you can, and call it focus. But this isn't focus. It's fixation. A slow, anxious countdown between candles while you pretend it's strategy. You're not afraid of losing trades. You're afraid of losing access to the screen, to the illusion of control. The smaller the lot, the longer the leash. So you call it discipline, while it quietly erodes you. You convince yourself the problem was size. Too risky, too aggressive, too emotional. So you cut it down, tighten the exposure. Felt smarter, felt safer. But all you really did was buy more time to stay in the same cycle. Because the damage wasn't coming from lot size, it was coming from how you show up. Desperate, exhausted, triggered. You still watch every candle like it's a threat. You still need to be in something to feel like you're doing something. You scalp smaller, not to protect capital, but to protect access, to make the habit less expensive, so you don't have to break it. Now, every micro trade is a license to sit longer, click more, react faster, and call it discipline, because the number is smaller. But the number doesn't matter. You're still bleeding, not through equity, but through time, through presence, through clarity. You don't care if the trade wins. You care that something's on, that something's open, that you haven't walked away. And that's the real risk. Not the market, but your refusal to step back. Because you think watching longer means caring more. You think clicking smaller means you've evolved. But nothing changed, except the impact per trade. The pattern stayed the same. You still chase, still hesitate, still force setups that only exist under the pressure of needing to stay engaged. You've confused obsession with discipline because it feels like effort, feels like control. But it's just fear. Wearing a headset, staring at charts, calling it study. You don't even want the trade. You want the entry. You want the feeling of being active without the consequence of being wrong. So you size down to keep pretending that your strategy is working. But your strategy isn't the system. It's your behavior, your inability to sit still, your addiction to motion. And now that the stakes are lower, you think the damage is lower too. It's not. Because you're not measuring damage in dollars anymore. You're measuring it in detachment. From logic, from clarity, from intention. You don't scalp with edge. You scalp with access. And as long as something's open, you don't have to deal with the discomfort of doing nothing. That's why you're stuck. Not because you lose big, but because you never stop trading small. Small enough to avoid panic. Big enough to stay inside the loop. It's not risk management. It's collapse on mute. You don't notice it right away because the losses don't scream. They drip, quiet, consistent, undeniable. Not just in your account, but in your attention. You used to trade with purpose. Now you trade to stay occupied. The chart never leaves your screen. You eat in front of it. Sleep with it open. Pause your life so you don't miss a candle that was never going to do anything. You call it tracking, but it's just paralysis in motion. You can't look away because you don't trust yourself to come back. Because the second you leave, the pressure returns. To be good, to be profitable, to be right. So you reduce the size until the trades are meaningless. But the presence remains. You're no longer a trader. You're a watcher, locked into endless loops of almost entries, near misses, late chases, and double confirmed hesitation. Your day becomes one long exposure to decision fatigue. Click, monitor, repeat until your instincts numb and your body tightens and you mistake exhaustion for effort. You think you're practicing. You're just decaying slower. The more time you spend staring, the less you actually see. You stop reading price. You start reading emotion. You wait for the chart to give you permission to do what you've already decided. Out of boredom, your trades become nervous twitches, triggered by silence, not signals. And every scalp, every micro win, only deepens the dependency. Because now you don't just want to trade. You need to. You need to feel the chart move, even if your trade doesn't. You don't want risk. You want stimulation, a flicker, a reaction, a heartbeat that reminds you you're still in it, even if in it means completely hollow. This is where your process rots, not in losses, but in saturation. The screen becomes your identity, and walking away feels like betrayal. So you don't. You sit and click and scalp your time into nothing. You think the lot size saved you. It didn't. It gave you permission to keep spiraling without financial consequence. But there's another cost that runs deeper. You start losing confidence, not because you lose money, but because you trade so much, you forget how to mean it. And by the time you realize what you've become, you can't remember the last trade that mattered. Only that something was always open and nothing ever changed. Shut the chart, not minimize it, not move it to a second screen. Close it. If you can't trade without watching, you're not trading, you're looping. You say you're studying price action. You're not. You're scanning for reasons to validate the next twitch. You don't need more time on screen. You need more time off it. You've mistaken endurance for skill. Hours watched equals nothing. Because your eyes don't trade, your hands do. And they're moving without clarity, without edge, without pause. You think smaller trades make you safer. They just make you slower to break. They prolong the cycle by softening the spike. But this isn't about loss size. It's about identity rot. You're becoming the trader who always has a position and no reason why. Here's your next step win. No chart access for 24 hours. No exceptions. No test scans. No, just checking levels. You either commit or you disappear inside your screen. Let your hands shake. Let your mind spiral. Let the craving talk. And hear what it says when it doesn't get to click. That's your real data. Not your win rate. Not your equity curve. But how violently your body resists stillness. Because that stillness is where your edge begins. The longer you sit in silence, the faster you'll see what part of your strategy was actually strategy, and what part was just obsession in disguise. Every trade you place this week with no clarity but full access needs to be reviewed. Not by the chart, by you, by the part of you that's been hiding behind the screen, pretending to be focused. You're not focused. You're dependent. You're not consistent. You're just always present. And presence means nothing if it's built on compulsion. So leave. Leave the platform. Leave the terminal. Leave the desk. And don't come back until you can walk in without needing to be in something. If the chart has to be open for you to feel calm, you've already lost. Not because you're reckless, but because you've outsourced peace to the presence of a candle. Close it. Feel the void. Let it burn. And only come back when the screen feels like a tool again, not a tether. You lowered the lot size, but you never lowered the noise. The chart kept running, and so did you. Not towards strategy, but towards sedation. You didn't scale down. You diluted impact so you could stay longer without questioning why you were still there. You didn't protect your capital. You preserved your addiction and dressed it up as caution. But nothing about this was safe. You just softened the edge until collapse felt manageable. Now every trade feels harmless because none of them are real. Just background noise to fill the silence you've refused to face. You don't need tighter stops. You need a harder boundary between you and the screen. You think this is discipline. It's just delay. Slow collapse in smaller pieces. And when it's over, you won't remember the trades. You'll remember the hours, the blur, the hollow, the feeling that you were always trading and never actually present. This video confronts behavior. It does not define identity.